Hey everyone, thank you for being with us today on this podcast. I'm at the No Code Week and I'm very happy to have a chance to talk with Nicolas Carroll from Bubble. We're going to talk about Bubble, obviously product management, and see also his impressions about this event of the No Code Week. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. Could you please introduce yourself a little bit first?
Yeah, of course. And yeah, thank you so much for having me as a part of this No Code Week. It's been really fun so far. But yeah, I'm Nick or Nicolas, product manager at Bubble. I've been at Bubble for over 3.5 years now, which has been really fun seeing the company grow from about 30 when I joined to about 140 where we're at now, as well as getting to work on the product and see it evolve over that time as well.
What were you doing before? What's your background?
Yeah, before this, I had my own startup, and it was a software platform for the live music industry. So as you can imagine, during COVID, kind of ended overnight.
Okay.
But I kind of lived that traditional founder story of you have an idea, you learn how to code, you try and raise some money, you bring something to market, you're trying to find engineers to help you scale the product, and really difficult and takes a long time. And so when I discovered Bubble and started working there, this light bulb moment of had I had Bubble when I first started, I would have been years ahead of where we ended up.
Yeah. Did you actually learn to code to launch your company, or to do part of the platform, the software?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a co-founder who was a designer and a front-end engineer, and so I handled most of the back-end development.
Okay, cool. But yeah, it's true. It's a story I've seen many times in the past. Some people who wish they had Bubble, some people who found out soon enough so they could build with it, or
right. Yeah.
But there's this frustration, and I've actually heard Emmanuel say that in the documentary from Stan. He was saying it's unfair that people who don't have coding skills or don't know coding, like an engineer or something, cannot build their product. And so I think this kind of summarizes also the mission of Bubble, I guess they have.
Yeah, I think it's a great way to put it, because what it prevents, that this barrier to entry, what it prevents is both people who are subject matter experts in their field where this problem exists, the chances that they're also a software developer, right, can be slim, or maybe their business idea isn't big enough for venture capital, for fundraising. And so if they don't know how to code, or they don't have friends that are engineers, they can either learn or they're kind of out of luck. So It's pretty cool in that regard. It just opens the door to so many new businesses.
Yeah, definitely. And some ideas that don't necessarily have a big market, so not necessarily interested for investors and VC, but still can solve a problem for people, small number of people. How would you describe Bubble? That's an exercise I like, because clearly we don't have video, so just by audio, how would you describe the product, but how people are using it? I mean, well, you understand, I guess.
Yeah. So I like to think of Bubble as a visual programming language. And so, it's a no-code platform, but I think our approach is very much, can we recreate the power of code in a way that's a lot easier to understand and use? And so if you think about Bubble as a visual programming language first, we also have the Bubble platform, which is your database, which is the hosting, which is the server. So not only is Bubble a way to kind of create the logic and what your app looks like, the different flows in kind of that easy visual way, it also takes care of all of the DevOps and platform concerns that is a whole other side of software development that rarely gets talked about.
It's super interesting, because I've just realized something now you were saying that, because yesterday I double-checked when was Bubble started. Mm-hmm. So I ended up on the Wikipedia page. And on the Wikipedia page, Bubble is presented as a visual programming language, which I found interesting, and I've heard Emmanuel saying that, and I was always thinking, okay, it's a bit weird because the language is text.
Right.
But first, not necessarily. I mean, sign language is not text,
Right.
you know.
Yep.
So, and also now I understand even more when you talk about the Bubble platform, and you make a difference between the programming language, the programming way of doing things, and then the platform when you implement it.
Yep. Yeah, and so if you think about, I mean, traditional coding, there's obviously the language itself is JavaScript or Ruby, and that's just text-based. But then you write it in an IDE or a text editor. And if you think about Bubble, it's very much the same thing, except the language itself is a little bit more visual. With workflows, you're kind of dragging and dropping workflows and organizing it that way. But also you're writing the language through quote unquote text editor, which is our design tab, our workflow tab, our data tab. So it kind of it shares a lot of similarities with traditional programming, just hopefully presented in a much more intuitive way.
Yeah, and integrated all at the same places. Like you have the IDE, so the environment, the context of execution, the stack. You were mentioning DevOps, so people without technical background don't necessarily understand what it is, but like hosting, like we all heard about hosting a website.
Right.
It has become more and more easy, but still requires technical knowledge. Having everything at the same place makes everything much easier.
Yeah.
Not just the building part also.
Right. Yeah, and I think, again, it's not talked about enough what happens next coding-wise. You might be able to get something going pretty quickly, but what happens when you start getting more and more traffic? Now it starts to get pretty complex in terms of what you do with your servers and workers and scaling databases and all these things that what's nice with Bubble is that you don't even have to think about.
Yeah, and it's something that has been discussed a lot since I've been following Bubble. Is like there was this thing, okay, Bubble is good, or no code in general, let's say, is good for building MVPs. And I remember from the beginning, 2019, when we started doing our workshops, one of the questions that was coming most is like, okay, it's great for MVP, but what happens when I scale? So first, people don't realize that their ID probably won't scale because it's not good enough to scale. But if that happens, it's a good problem.
Right.
And now this question doesn't even happen anymore because people understand that there are so many examples of big projects built on Bubble, still living on Bubble and growing. But it is part of the what you offer in a way, the platform, I mean.
Right. I wouldn't say the question doesn't come up anymore. I think
less often.
It's gotten a lot better. Yeah. I think people have realized like, okay, well, no code can scale, right? It's not just a toy or something you use for prototypes. There are people that have built some serious businesses on top of a lot of no code tools, but Bubble as well. And the big thing is, right, you choose something like Bubble because it's easier to get started. The development turnaround times are a lot faster. You can iterate on your product a lot faster. Why wouldn't you want those same benefits when you get bigger? So there's kind of this inflection point where you think, oh, okay, well, we've raised some money or we have a lot of revenue. We can hire engineers now. Sure, but why would you want to slow yourself down like that?
That's true.
So provided, right, speed and stability and the stuff are there, there's no reason why you wouldn't want to keep those benefits going even as your user base grows.
Can you tell us now? If we talked a little bit about Bubble. What's your role there? Explain this your role at Bubble and this role in general, also because I found it interesting.
Yeah, so I'm a product manager. Right now, I work on our mobile team, so the team that's developing the native mobile apps editor, and also a part of our AI team that's working on a pretty serious AI investment with Bubble. Which is pretty exciting as well. And so I like to think, product management is a pretty open-ended sometimes role. It has a lot of kind of softer skills involved with it, as opposed to, as a designer, like the work output are designs and specs, and that as an engineer, the work output is code and features. And so the role of the product manager is a lot more helping make that happen. So the work product is not something that's always super specific in a lot of documents, but I see it as a lot more as a coordination of all the experts to help something come to life. And so it's, a lot of what we're thinking about is, what should we build? When should we build it? Who are we building it for? Why are we building it in the first place? And making sure that you're kind of taking in all these different data points. So what are your users saying? What's the market telling us? What's the mission of our product and the mission of our company? Are there any kind of top business priorities that we would want to impact through the product? So kind of synthesizing all these different data points, thinking about the problems that need to be solved and how you might go about solving those, and then working with your team to come up with those solutions and implement them.
Okay, thanks. It was clear, because I feel like sometimes people are a bit not always clear about what product management means. So it's always nice to explain. Before, just a quick question. I'm curious. You've probably heard of the term product builder in the no-code world.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
What do you? Because I feel like there is many also definitions on that, and I guess a lot of people are using Bubble, as professionally, I would say, and they put themselves as product builders. Is this something like you hear? And
honestly, I've heard it before. I'm not super familiar with the distinctions. Yeah. I don't know if it's, we traditionally associate software engineer, developer with code. So if product developer is more, hey, because we're focused on building products, we're not focused on the language or the code itself. If it's an abstraction there, or if it's something kind of unique in a different function that maybe combines a few different roles.
It's interesting because maybe I realize now that maybe it's a term that's quite popular in France, even though it's in English, but maybe it's not anywhere else. But yeah, in France there is several definitions. The way I see it is like someone who's in between, just like a no-code engineer, or someone who just like specialized in the tech, and someone who's product manager.
Okay, gotcha.
So it could be, it's like there's something interesting there, because since no-code is a higher level of abstraction, you can have someone who is a bit maybe less technical, but also understand like the job of a product manager and can get like the gist of it, but implement it straight away, like so you kind of bypass, like go faster to the result. But
yeah, no, actually that's a great point, because you don't, if you're a product manager and you're leveraging no-code tools, you don't need to be a software engineer.
Yeah,
so you can,
in a way.
Yeah, you can kind of skip that step.
And but it probably works also in some context. But I mean, product manager, as you explained very well, is a job. There's different things that comes to it, not just like designing features, and so it's interesting. But sorry, it was just I was curious if you had heard that. If we come to the product Bubble. Maybe you'd probably divide it in several products. Actually, you were talking about the platform, the building. What would you say is the challenge? Maybe that they faced at the beginning that is probably now gone. But how do you make an interface or a product that helps people building things without coding, pretty much?
Yeah, it is a challenging product to work on, but it's very rewarding. One, just, in terms of seeing our mission through, but then also you're a product manager trying to build a tool that helps other people build products.
Yeah.
And so there's this pretty cool component where you're not just thinking about your user, you're thinking about your user's end user, right? What are they trying to enable for their user? What problems might they find themselves in based off of what they're trying to build, right? And kind of build for that. So, yeah, I mean, personally, I find that's the most fun challenge as a product manager, because there's a few levels of thinking there. Another challenge is just the breadth of the product. So, I mean, Bubble, like the service area of Bubble is huge, and a lot of other products, they're a little bit more confined and specific. But again, since we're building a product that builds products, there's a lot that goes into that. So design tools, language tools, I mean, the whole platform aspect, and then all the features and functionality that fall under those categories. It's a lot.
Yeah, I can imagine. Is it like, how many product managers is there in the team?
We have, oh man, I don't know if I can count on the fly, but I think we're around like 8 or 9 product managers.
Okay. How many engineers? Just to have like the ratio.
Yeah, I think we're around 40 to 50 engineers.
Okay.
So our teams kind of are around, I would say 3 to 5 engineers per team generally.
Okay. And is it just out of curiosity to understand like the organization, are people working on features? Like, let's say, is there a product manager that takes care of the database from the designer, or I don't know, or is it different, or it's just like a different level, or it's more like project led?
Yeah, it flexes. I think we try to be a little bit flexible and put our resources towards the problems that we're looking to solve, while being mindful that context is really important. And so you want to also have kind of experts in parts of the code base. So like we have an editor team that focuses on the core product, and they're going to work on different projects depending on the different priorities. We have a platform team that is multiple teams, and they're focused on the platform itself, so the database and our infrastructure and all of that. And so that's kind of more service area specific. But then we have a scale team that's focused on the problem of scaling and the scaling issues that users face from a product perspective. And then we have our mobile and AI teams that are, again, kind of focused more on like a specific problem or project, so to speak. So yeah, it depends.
Okay. And regarding the mobile, of course people are interested in that because it's a very asked feature, I guess. I remember, I think it was in 2020, because it was right before COVID. So this was already 4 years ago, like a little bit more. There was a conference where Emmanuel was. At the end of the talk, he was asked about mobile, and I think he said, like, we will do it one day probably, but not before 10 years. Like, he was really saying that he wasn't in their focus. And then we didn't hear so much about it. And then, like, I guess fairly recently, I'm not a bubbler really, so maybe I'll also lose a bit track, and now it's imminent. I would say, like you talked about it, for the people who were at the No-Code Week, they'll see. And this is going to bring me also to the question of the roadmap. How do you decide on things? But specifically on the mobile, when it was decided that there will be a focus, and why?
Yeah. It was back really in kind of middle of last year when we started taking a more serious look at it. I mean, mobile has always been in the back of our head. It's always been something that we've wanted to work on, and really, I think what Emmanuel was referring to is we only have so many resources. We already have this massive surface area from our existing product. If we add mobile into the mix, right, that's a big expansion of the product. I think it was, I'd been working at that point on our core product for a few years, and was thinking about kind of what's next for the product, right? What's the big gap, or what's that next kind of strategic push that we can make outside of iterative improvements to the product. And it was kind of like, I think now is the right time to pursue mobile. And for a few reasons. I mean, if you think about, again, achieving our mission of allowing anyone to build software regardless of their background, there's a lot more software than just web apps, right? Like mobile apps are, we use mobile apps every day. We're always on our phones. And so there are so many use cases, so many businesses, so many founders that we're leaving out in the cold because we don't have that mobile offering. So it was really taking a look at our mission. We were getting to a size where we had more resources. We could think about how we deploy those outside of just, some super specific things like we had to do in the past. And I think when we realized that also it's a huge expansion of our addressable market, it's also pretty exciting from a business perspective. Where so it kind of hit those three things. It hit and also just thinking about where the market's going. I mean, there's some pretty cool mobile focused no code platforms out there. So
yeah, but I feel like there is not that no one has really cracked it yet,
Right.
It's like, I feel like for what I've seen, like for instance, Glide was mobile first for a long time. They even had a place where they were saying like it's coming soon, like the native, because we will have to explain also maybe a little bit the native mobile apps. But then they just say like, okay, we'll never do it eventually. And then they change their focus and they're not even really mobile first. There was Adalo, that I think was very interesting in terms of UX experience. It was very accessible for beginners.
Yep.
But I don't really know where they are now, unfortunately. And so, I feel like, okay, I'm hearing, because I'm also very focused on things that are accessible to non-technical users. So for me, that excludes Flutterflow, for instance, or I don't even know if Flutterflow does native apps actually. But so you see, like, so I feel like it still has been cracked, and I guess Bubble can do it. Maybe we'll see.
I hope we're the ones to crack. I agree. I think I don't think anyone's cracked it yet. I mean, mobile is hard. Yeah. It's hard because you're really now having to operate within the ecosystem of Apple and also of Android, and they have their own rules. They have their own differences. But mobile design patterns are very different than web, where web is really kind of open-ended and free-form to a lot of degree. Mobile starts to become a lot more specific. And then you add the hardware mix of all the...
Can you just clarify for people who don't know or don't understand really, like, because you can from the beginning pretty much build a web app on Bubble that I can open on a phone, right? So this works like a web app. When you say mobile, I guess you refer to native mobile, so an app that can be deployed on the stores. Can you just explain a bit that what is new for that wasn't possible before?
Right. Yeah. So you could build a web app and make it responsive, and so it on a mobile browser it shows up nicely. And then there was wrapping mobile apps, so things like BDK, where basically all it would do, it was this shell of native code that would load the Bubble app in a browser in the application. So it was really the same web app just inside this shell. And when we talk about native mobile, we're talking about apps that run kind of native iOS Swift code or native Android Kotlin code. And it's really taking advantage of those native languages and the performance and the look and feel and the snappiness and the
access to the hardware.
To the hardware, right? Where that's where the magic lives. And so while users have found a lot of success with wrappers and there are a lot of Bubble apps in the App Store, what's missing is that really native experience. And that's because they fundamentally were not able to take advantage of a lot of that native code.
I feel like especially Apple doesn't like so much the wrapping. I mean, depends, but I've heard it can be a reason for being rejected to the store.
Yeah, they're very specific.
Yeah. So, okay, no, that's super interesting. You talked a bit yesterday already about the challenges of this mobile. You showed some examples, so I will put the link to the replay because we filmed everything last night, so people can see it. I want to come back to the roadmap. How much you let, or say you follow users' demand because of course, like for instance, mobile, people have been asking for it for a long time, but it's like in the end, you cannot also let the user choose what you will build next. How does this work at Bubble?
Yeah. Are you like Bubble in general, or thinking about the mobile roadmap?
Depends. I would say probably Bubble in general.
Okay. So. Yeah. No, I mean, it's definitely more of an art instead of a science, I would say. There's a lot of factors that you have to include. I mean, a huge one is user feedback, right? You want to be listening to your users. You want to be taking into account.
Is there a platform where people put their feature request and there's a voting system and stuff?
Yeah, so we have an idea board on bubble.io, and then our forum's very active, so there are a lot of people writing feature requests there and through social media. So and writing into our success team and also in how they communicate with our sales team. So there's a lot of different inputs there, and we do take that very seriously. We as product managers, we want to be really close to what users are saying. That being said, a lot of times you need to read between the lines. And so a user might be asking for a specific feature, but they're looking to solve a problem at the end of the day. And might there be a better way to solve that problem with a feature that they haven't asked for, but still gets them the end result? And so that drop-down example that I shared yesterday was a good example of that. It's like, I want a drop-down element, but really what they were trying to build is kind of a single or multi-select flow. And we can accomplish that in a better way by offering, checkboxes and this and that as native elements rather than a drop-down. So I think that's a good example of we're listening to our user, but we're not building exactly what they asked for. Right. So that's one big piece. You also have to think about kind of business objectives, right? So are we trying to move conversion? Are we trying to retain our users? Are we focused more on kind of top of funnel? And that can influence the type of projects that you work on. There's also kind of strategic investments. So I think, AI is a great example of a strategic investment of thinking about in the future, right? What happens if we don't make an investment here, right? And I think there are, right, we can kind of picture what that world might look like. So that's another thing to take into consideration. And then also, I mean, if you think about, so kind of like strategic investments, but there's also kind of platform and infrastructure investments. So, we're making a really big push right now in a lot of projects that will improve the stability and reliability of Bubble. Obviously, users are really asking for that, right? Yeah. It's really important to them, but it's generally like not features that they're asking for, but we want it to be more reliable. And so then we're crafting a roadmap around what we need to enable to make that happen.
Okay. Maybe to finish, maybe we can talk a little bit about AI.
Okay.
Clearly, it's because the way I see it, and I'm curious I don't know what you will be able to tell us, but on this roadmap on AI, and also maybe there are already things done that I don't know of because again, I'm not a bubbler. But what I've seen in the other tools is that there is two subjects here. There's how AI can help the tool, the user of the tool, to build faster. Let's say, I want an app that the Airbnb, and that it's the AI kind of like makes you the basic things. And then the other way is like having AI integrated in what is produced by the user. So as you were mentioning, like to the end user, like something available to the end user, or integrating into the workflows, or there's different levels to it. What's being done, or what are you working on? What are what's strategic also?
Yeah, no, AI is showing up in a number of different ways. Like you mentioned, our success team has really leveraged it to help them work more efficiently and provide better outcomes for our users. In some of our onboarding flows, we've integrated AI to help the user get started faster.
Okay.
And we call them build guides. It kind of helps the user walk through those initial steps. So that's been pretty cool. And then there's a whole bunch of no code and Bubble is a great way to leverage all of these really cool AI models out there like ChatGPT. And so there's some work that we've done to make it easier to integrate. and work that we're doing to make it easier to integrate and build AI-powered applications on Bubble. And then, then there's our strategic investment in AI. And, part of it, like I mentioned before, is a bit of a defensive play of, AI is an existential threat to, I think, all software development, software engineers, no-code platforms, right? If you can just type in a prompt and it generates code for you, it's like, oh man, what happens to the engineers and stuff. But so there's that piece, and but there's also the offensive piece, and that's what really we're most interested in. Is at the end of the day, AI is a tool, right? It's a tool that helps you solve problems, and so how do we leverage the power of AI to build the best-in-class platform out there for building software? And so that's really what we're focused on now. We have a cool AI event on June 13th. So coming up in a few days. So if you're interested more, we're going to talk a lot about kind of how Bubble thinks about AI, how do you build AI-powered apps on Bubble, and then a little bit about our roadmap in the in what our AI investment looks like. But I will say that one of the most powerful things that we could do is that exact scenario of imagine within a few minutes after typing in a few prompts and describing what you want, you had a fully functional application. And because it's built on Bubble and because it's no code, theoretically it's a lot easier for the user to take that and
exactly that's why I agree that there is a world where AI will produce code instead of programmers, of junior programmers, let's say. That's a short term, but it doesn't change the thing that this code cannot be used by people who don't know how to code. They don't know, they can't read it, they can't modify it, and also they can't host it. We always come back to this thing.
Right.
And that's why I feel like, already since all this Gen AI has been, that the no-code platforms are the best places where these kind of things okay, this is where you should generate, because after the generation is done, as you were mentioning, you can edit what has been done using visual programming, and then you have the best of both worlds in a way.
Right. Yeah. I hope we're right. That's the bet that we're taking.
Because when you were saying okay, do you think, this is more prospective question, but do you see a world where it could skip really, we could write a prompt and get an app that is fully functional and what you want?
I think based off of what I'm seeing our AI team do, that's 100% a real possibility. Okay. Which is, if you had asked me a few months ago, I would have been skeptical. But seeing what they've been able to accomplish and the research they've done and the pace of AI progress in general is incredible.
It's true that there are a lot of things that we wouldn't have said 2 years ago, and then each month it's pushing.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel like there will always be a need of customization.
Always, and So I think generative AI is one piece, right? Can we get the user started? Can we get them the value really quickly? But it doesn't end there, right? It's not like, oh, I have an MVP and so my journey's done. And so the second piece that we're thinking about and focused on is, well, how do we leverage AI to help a user iterate on their app, right? To improve it, to continue to customize it, because it's never going to be 100% correct, right? And that's where the human element is so important in general, is probably that last 10%. Yeah. And so, again, thinking about, okay, well, now that we've built it, how do we continue leveraging those tools to get that last 10%?
Because some people might say, oh, but okay, so you can ask the AI to do the modification, you can write prompts, and do this iteration. But I feel like after the initial generation, let's say, it's much more efficient to do visually. Just like the way no coders are building, just blocks and all this is fast. Visual programming is super efficient to my mind, better than prompting. But maybe I will say something different in 1 year. But
no, I agree. But so one challenge now is, it's no secret that the learning curve on Bubble is steep. And that's starting from scratch, which is it's a progression in terms of complexity. And so one of the problems we'll face is, let's say we generate that app for the user, there's a lot of complexity that they're inheriting. So there's definitely going to be an offboarding problem that we need to solve, of how do we get the user to understand what we've developed for them and how to use it and how to modify it.
It's I remember when we started our no-code journey in 2019, there was a lot of things with the templates. Like Bubble always had crazy templates, like there were clones of Uber and things like this already. So this was like 5 years ago. But then people didn't realize that, okay, those templates are super powerful, but it's going to be very hard to modify them. It's like, you can take them, maybe change a few colors, but you won't be able to really change the workflows unless you build it, because all the templates were built by different agencies or freelancers. But if you generate if Bubble, has this AI, or at least you can generate them always in the same way, following the same principles. And this is already, I think, a good start to make something that's okay. People can. It's more like orthodox, I would say. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I think if you follow best practices, you write clean, modular, quote unquote code.
Yeah.
It is easier to understand, but this is not a problem that's unique to
Bubble.
just generated apps. But also if you think about, okay, I've built an app, I'm hiring a new team member, new developer.
Yeah.
How are they going to get up to speed on what we've built? And so documentation in our product is a real problem. And I think, again, because of the platform, because of how everything is integrated, there is an opportunity out there to kind of expose and describe that architecture to the user in a way that's easier to understand so that they can get started. So I think there are ways to solve the problem that we create with a lot of the same tools that we're using already.
No, it's interesting. Yeah, because I remember also there was a bit of myth, that, okay, someone can build Bubble, something else, app, and then give it to the client, and then the client can take it over. And this is not true. I talked to so many agencies, they say once if the client touches the thing, then the warranty is done, like we won't be, because people are going to mess up the workflows or the database.
Yeah, there's a lot of complexity there.
But this is why, it's, again, we always come back to, no code doesn't mean easy. If you want power, you need to have like knowledge and understand technical concepts. And I think Bubble is a good example of that. As you said, there is a bit of a steep learning curve. And there are some other tools, much less powerful, more accessible, and then depends what you want to build. But I'm curious to see what how AI is going to help on this learning curve.
Yeah, it's really opened up a world of possibilities, and very excited to be sharing more news about what we've been up to in that space soon.
Cool. We will follow that. Thank you so much. Just one last question. Are you enjoying the No Code Week?
Yeah, I've been having a blast. This is the first, I think, No Code conference that I've been to in person, at least. And so I didn't really know what to expect, but it's been a really cool mix of social activities, but then also the talks and kind of in-person chats. People are from all over here. They're working on all different types of businesses. The diversity of backgrounds and people is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I've been sitting down with, one of the attendees just troubleshooting and building a Bubble app, which is super fun. But then talking to founders who, we heard a really cool story of how Tally was founded and some of the challenges they face growing, and that's a pretty powerful story to hear.
Yeah, no, definitely, and I'm very happy that you came, because I'm glad Bubble supported the event, and also that it's not just, with all the due respect, but not just someone from the partnership team that comes to represent, but also because you're really involved in the product. And as a user, and so part of really this thing. So for us, it also brings a different discussion. And your talk yesterday also was really interesting, I think, in that regard. So thank you.
Yeah, well, I hope you'll have me back at the next No Code Week.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we're very happy to.
Yeah, you can count on me being there.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. Great.
Awesome.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you you so much for listening to this episode until the end. It was very nice to have a chance to talk to Nicolas. I wish I had more time during the No-Code Week to record more episodes, but I was very busy with the organizing of the event, of course. But it was great. We had many amazing partners. And I hope to see you next year. We will soon reveal where the event is going to take place. So see you soon, and please register to the podcast, and there will be more episodes as soon as I will travel more to meet interesting no-coders around the world. Bye.